Okay, before I put the sleeves together, I want to go ahead and put the gather stitch from notch to notch. Here's the back notch, front notch. I'm going to do it 1/2 inch away. I'm going to make the stitch a little bit bigger, 4 or 5, maybe like a little bit further. And then no back stitching, of course. I'm just going to go around that cap about 1/2 inch. To this notch, put the foot up, release the tension, and cut a good amount. Then I'm going to put a second thread right there next to the first one, and just about 1/4 inch away from there, like that. I made it a little bit less, more like 1/8 inch away. Like that. Release the tension. I'm going to do that on the other sleeve. Okay. Now that that's there, I'm going to put right sides together. I wrote a little wrong on there, so I know which right sides together. Put it back to a smaller stitch. I got it 2.5 now, and I'm going to stitch the under the sleeve here, the seam for the sleeve, matching right underneath there as well, 1/2 inch. Okay, all the way down. Lining up these two guidelines all the way down. And making sure that this lines up here at the bottom. Back stitch. And cut that off. I'm going to do the other one as well. Make sure that they are kissing the edges with the other edge. Okay. Back stitch. This up and do the sleeve. I had the sleeve prepared with the 2 rows of easing stitching. I have my mark stitching here on the bicep and elbow line and center line. I'm going to gently pull the inside threads. It's usually better just to ease it a little bit. This is not going to be gathered, but just ease. I'm going to just pull those 2 threads from the inside, the bobbin threads, and go ahead and push a little bit of ease all the way throughout this top of this cap. Like that on that side, and I'm going to do the same on this side here, like this, all the way through, like that. Okay, now I'm going to be taking the sleeve, and here's my bodice, and I'm going to put right sides together underneath the arm like this, opening that seam allowance and matching it to the seam allowance underneath the sleeve and armhole, putting a pin going this way to make sure that that is on the seam itself. And then as I do that, I'm going to turn it this way so that I have the sleeves and the armhole right sides together. I'm going to put the center marking here where the center seam is, and I'm going to put a pin on the inside where the gathering is. This way and this way, that on the center. And then I'm going to just ease this to make sure that the easing fits the armhole. We've got the notch, so we have the one notch here with the one notch here. Putting those two guys together. Let's just take all these extra threads out of the way. Putting that notch to that notch, just like that. Pinning it this way as well. And then just putting pins periodically like that, perpendicular to the seam line, just to hold it in place. And it should be fine underneath the armhole as well. Turn it around and do the same thing to the other side. The double notch for the back with the double notch for the back here as well. And put that this way, the pins all the way around. And just continue to put pins wherever you need it, just to hold that ease in place. It should not be more than 1/2 inch extra ease on the front or the back to the center. If you have more than that with your sleeve, then the sleeve is too large for the armhole itself, the pattern. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put this here on my machine. And it's going to be 1/2 inch seam allowance. Again, this is professional. This is not home sewing. I'm going to go first at the perpendicular point here of the seam to the seam, underneath seam to the underneath seam of the armhole of the garment itself. I'm going to go right there with my normal stitch, 2.5 or so. Back stitch it just like that. And I'm going to go all the way around like this, 1/2 inch, gently maneuvering the sleeve to fit properly and not taking more or less. All the way around. All the way around. Smooth underneath and then just doing all the way around. Hopefully you can see this. 1/2 inch seam allowance. Keeping it together. 1/2 inch seam allowance. Keeping it together. There you go. 1/2 inch seam allowance. There we go. All the way around. All the way around. Just continue to go all the way around. I don't really like to have a lot of pins. This is probably one of the few times that I would use pins. And there we go. And keeping it flat and moving that head out of the way. Putting both of them mesh up against. Okay, and we are at the end. Back stitch, voila. Release the tension by lifting the foot and turning the wheel so the threads can come out. Voila, there's the sleeve. I'm going to show you on the dress form, but before I do that, I want to do one final step.